What are the party's goals for the next 5 years?
Basically, all our goals are described in brief in our program, but it's very difficult to cut it short and to explain in a couple of words what are the main goals. There is a difference between the party which is governing the country for the last 5 years, for the last 13 years in fact, and that's why our program, unlike other programs, is less promises and more what we're able to actually deliver.
Why are these elections important for the Republican Party?
These elections are important because we have our programs, and unfortunately part of our program was not implemented properly because of financial crisis. So our main goal is to accomplish the plan of reforms which we prepared during last elections. Of course, it was done partially, but we think that we have to deliver more to our society.
How does the party plan to fight election fraud?
There are different directions, and first of all, one of the most important things is the legislation. We changed our legislation, and I think that this is an unprecedented action. A lot of preventive mechanisms were introduced in our legislative code, electoral code. They are not only just preventive mechanisms, but mechanisms to control and to ensure the transparent elections. Special rights for the opposition proxies, new rules for campaigning, financial transparency, the new procedure to consider the claims against the results. I think it's really an interesting combination of legislative measures. Of course, legislation alone is not enough. Nevertheless, it is really important to have specific preventive mechanisms. The second important direction is within the context of the rules of conduct, which we propose to other parties and 4 other parties already joined us. Moreover, 2 parties which disagree to join to code of conduct, nevertheless, they are working with us in close cooperation, they are participating in our meetings. So in general, I think we're on the right track.
Which parties are those?
Except Armenian National Congress and United Armenians, who are working with other parties.
How much strength does the Republican Party have in terms of membership and support?
I'm not sure that it's proper to talk about support, because it's more for professionals, sociologists, to deliver the data that they collected using their methodologies. But we're a big party. We're a really big party. But again, I prefer to avoid talking about the numbers, because I heard about bigger parties, and I'm not sure that if all information is true, that we have enough population in Armenia to be member of all parties participating in the elections. So we're a really big party, and for sure we're more than 100,000.
Nearly everyone I have spoken to in the last 7 to 8 years is disappointed with the authorities, especially since the Republicans took control of the National Assembly and the government. They say that the country is not a country, there are no laws, there is no justice. They feel discouraged and desperate. How do you explain this?
It's understandable, first of all. And of course, it's positive that the party or the governance of the country is criticized. We are also not satisfied with the situation in the country. That's why we're providing to the society our plans, what we're going to change. But if you compare country now and 13 years ago when Republican Party came into power, you will see significant change in the country. Again, It doesn't mean that this change is enough. Nevertheless, still a long way to go. And unfortunately, the countries are not simple thing to run the country. You can't change just in a day or in a month the situation in the country. You have to develop a plan which is reliable, which is possible to implement, which is realistic, and to implement it step by step. If you compare even the last 5 years, you will see a significant change in the country. Just a couple of examples. In the political context, the significant change of the role of the opposition in the parliament, or new mechanisms to prevent corruption, new mechanisms to prevent conflicts of interests. All these measures were introduced in our legislation during the last 5 years.
Well, what can the Republicans do to earn the people's trust in the next 4 to 5 years? These same people who are desperate, the same people who are saying it's better for me to leave the country, to live abroad. How can the Republican Party put a stop to that?
In fact, we have to do a lot. Nevertheless, there are two basic things to change. Or probably three. The first one is the trust towards the electoral process. The second, it's laws of proper quality. And the third, justice. Probably not less important, and probably really the most important. Fair laws and justice.
Finally, do the Republicans fear losing their majority in the National Assembly and losing control of the government?
We have no such feeling.